Film itself. Why is film, let's say, your weapon of choice, your art form, your way to express something?
Well, because of its potential and its characteristics, it's a motion picture. You have time, you have so many components. You have time, you have sound, you have, the cinema space, the projection space, you have the screen, and there's just a multi-dimensional potential
Right.
that I love utilizing to create art. Well, I think I would consider myself as a film artist or an experimental filmmaker, even though experimental filmmakers, what does it mean? But I think that
What does it mean?
It means that the work I do references a certain film history on the margins between art and film, art and film worlds. It has a tradition, and you can't deny the fact that there are many elements that that I owe to the traditions of experimental or avant-garde film history. Now, whether what I make is experimental film or not is not up for me to. I just subscribe to it, and I come from that tradition. I don't really, I think, I'm not an artist with a capital A. There are so many different pockets and realms of the art world or the film world. And so I think that I kind of reside somewhere in between.
Mm-hmm. I like that expression. I never heard that before, the artist with a capital A. What would that be to you?
What would that be?
Yeah.
I think there are many, I think those are people or artists who are able to sustain themselves making art, sell art. And certain pockets of the art world are definitely more capitalist than, there are different pockets, both in the film and the art world, not so much in the commercial world of film, that provides spaces for communities to thrive and to communicate with each other and cross-pollinate and exchange ideas and open up worlds for discussion or dialogue. Or there is a social agency in film that I very much appreciate. So when I say capital A, I don't know. These are different ideas that are being thrown around.
Of course, it's just sometimes we ask people what they think about the word, struggling artist. Does an artist have to struggle? And then there are artists who do struggle, and some struggle less, and some struggle more. But I think just the fact that you create art,
I think for me, art is very personal. It's a very personal expression. It's also a very personal mode of communication. And to me, the biggest success is a stranger comes up to me and says, that really spoke to me, or that really inspired me. And that's when I think that it worked out, or that it has meaning, and that's like a reward to me if it reaches people, if it manages to communicate to other people. And so that is a very personal exchange, in my art, I feel that my art is very personal, coming from a personal place. So that kind of is almost in contradistinction to, marketability. I don't know. That's the way I see it. I think it doesn't have to be that way, but that's the way it's been for me, or that's been my experience.
Especially because your films are very abstract, and the experimental films are sometimes hard to get into, or for a wider audience. Do you think about the response, or what it could be?
No, I don't. In theory, of course, you always wonder what people are going to say or what they're going to think, but I try to really just focus on developing my expression, or my filmic language, which has been progressively, developing. It is an experimental film, it is an abstract film, but I try to work through a set of questions. It's not like it's just merely structural or formal. There are specific ideas and questions and concepts that I try to work through, and so while I figure out what I'm doing, I always am in good faith that there is going to be someone out there who understands what I'm doing, because that's been, this is not my first film, so that's been the experience in the past, that there have been people who respond. And so, but I don't make it for an audience. I can't possibly do that because then you would be catering to someone else, you know,
Right.
and not to your expression or what you're
Right.
trying to work out. The work is abstract, and so then it's open for people to have their own associations or you know interpretations, and that's you know intentional. But I do see things that I want, you know. I have my own interpretations and associations and answers and
Right.
ambitions and obviously motivations, and like I said, set of questions that I work through. And if that, you know, people do, you know, some people, if a handful of people see that the same way as I do, then that's really rewarding.
Right. Or even, I mean, even if they see something else, I mean, if there is a response, I
Of
think
course.
it's,
With these kind of works, I always say, I like to say, or the past couple of works, they really follow a dream logic, so that you know you can really, it works in, you know, everyone can have their own association and read their own meaning into it, and that's perfectly fine. I do not want you to see it the same way as I do. I see something just the same as like if you dream of a forest, then it may mean something else to you. It could be threatening, or it could be a beautiful place, and you know it's the same way. Some people see the flicker, and it's because it's very physical. I want it to be a very physical experience. For some people, it's very uncomfortable, or they don't like it, or they even leave. And for other people, it's very immersive, and they think it's great and beautiful. And so the experience is very personal, and that's the way I want it to be. I don't want to dictate what people feel or think.
Right.
I just have something that I want to offer,
Sure.
and then people can, you know, take away something, or yeah, or not.
So talking about your technique with, I mean, the flickering image and a lot of times found footage that you use, well, how did you come up with that, or why is that working for you? Why are you keep using? Why do you keep using that?
Flicker.
Yeah.
It started out as something.
Because it is a very particular, you know, technique, and
Yeah.
like you said, for some people it's hard to manage to watch that, and some people love it.
I think for every film there is a different reason why I use it in terms of content, but in terms of structure, it was purely economical. I mean, I was using found footage. I was using, you know, in the switch between standard definition and HD, and then from transfer from film. Most of the material is taken from 60 millimeter orphaned or archival material or found footage, and a lot of it is archived in low resolution, and so in order to work with it, in order to, like, you know, the old questions of back in the day when we still had interlacing and all of that, and cleaning all of that up, the flicker somehow, or the blink cut, it started with blink cuts and then sped up into flicker, and then, you know, I just tried to find aesthetic ways to economically work with material that otherwise looked crappy, and to make it look better. And, you know, I was trying to figure things out, and then developed a kind of a aesthetic. Or, I mean, obviously there's references, and obviously I've had influences from other filmmakers. I don't want to deny that, but I think, you know, I was still trying to work out an aesthetic that in which flicker came as what was the answer or something.
Oh, well, that's really interesting, because I mean, that's not what I think about when I see the film.
Yeah.
That this could be a reason behind it.
Yeah, that was the reason.
Yeah,
but then
but
now,
I think that's great.
For this project, like I said, for every film there is a different reason, or I would argue differently. But for this film, or this work, flicker really symbolizes human consciousness, because it's fragile, it's fragmented, it's not continuous, and so the flicker and the superimposition, because there are several layers of image, you know, image tracks that interweave, and that also symbolizes the way, you know, your consciousness or your thoughts are always interrupted by, you know, different things like desire, or, you know, perceptions of the world, or, you know, wishful thinking, and that's the way consciousness is. It's fragmented, and it happens in spurts and fits. And
so are your dreams. In the end.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's why I like the technique, because that's what it symbolizes to me, and it leaves all these, you can kind of kind of go around it, or think around it, or circumambulate, and try to find different ways in, and there are different angles that you can hopefully find to read the work or find meaning in it.
Right. if you had the chance to have like a big budget and you have those great ideas, would you be able to compromise some things in order to make that happen?
I wouldn't, I could imagine working with people and I've shot footage myself for a previous film and worked with DP and a person who acted for me, not really acted, but she was more like a model. And I can certainly imagine doing that, but I think that I develop things from, through process, so I'm not sure about like answering to, certain demands from, production companies or something. I don't think that that's the way I work. Like I said, circling back to what I said in the beginning, it's a very personal process.
Sure.
And so I would have to have that freedom of continuing to work in that way.
Would you be able to do something very commercial in order to then have the possibility to do it something else by yourself? You know how they say you do something for them and then you do a project for yourself.
I don't know. I don't know if that would work out that way. I don't know if I would want that.
Well, good for you.
It seems strange to say that at a festival
Not at all.
like the Berlinale.
No, not at all. I think especially at the Berlinale, and especially at the short section where there is a lot of room for experimental films, we have talked to a lot of people who stand by their view of things that they say, no, I could never do that. And
yeah, I mean, like I said, it's a personal process, and I need to try to stay true to myself. And I feel like if you're trying to cater to other expectations, then it's hard to stay, to kind of follow your own path and stay true to that, because then you would be working for others and not focusing on what your questions are.
Right.
You know.
Talking about film school education,
Uh-huh.
how important do you think it is to have a formal education for filmmaking, for example? I mean, you've attended.
I went to an art school. I
an
studied
art school.
fine arts in Berlin.
Right. Would you still be a filmmaker if you hadn't done that?
I don't know. I can't answer that. I think filmmakers come from all directions, and I don't think that there is a rule to that. Even though film schools are helpful, obviously, because you can learn the craft and you can, formally learn something that other people take a longer time to teach themselves. But I don't think that there is a rule of thumb in terms of, you have to have gone to school in order to, it depends on what your goal is and what your expression is. And some things can be learned at school and others can't. So. But I think exchange is very important, and maybe film or art institutions where you can meet other people to have an exchange with. And if you're coming from outside, that might be harder to access, but it all depends. There are communities, film communities and grassroots organizations where that can happen as well.
Right.
So there's no rule of thumb, I would say.
Talking about the screening process, where do you see, how do I phrase that? How important is the outlet for you? I mean, where you screen your film, especially now with, streaming services and a lot of stuff being online, people watching their stuff on the phone, and a lot of experimental films also are being shown in museums and on little screens. Mm-hmm. Where do you see yourself there? Or where do you see the future of cinema really, headed?
I like the communal experience. I like being in the same space with other people and looking at something. And my work is very physical. You can't have that on a laptop, or you can't have that on a computer screen. It needs to be a large screen. It needs to be an immersive experience. That's what I want. I want, for a lot of people, the flicker and the loud sound is overwhelming, but that's exactly what I want. I want it to feel, it's supposed to be physical, and it's supposed to be overwhelming, and you're supposed to be drawn in. If a museum or a gallery space can provide that, that's perfectly fine. As long as I don't think I would like people to walk in and out. I would like it to be a situation where there's a beginning and an end, and people hopefully would sit through it and let the experience happen.
as a female artist, as a female filmmaker, now with everything happening around us, with the Me Too campaign, maybe you can just talk about your own experience as a female artist. We've talked to a few female filmmakers even a couple of weeks ago, and there were some really horrendous stories.
Well, I mean, I've had my share of experiences, and I think that it's systemic, unfortunately, I think. There's a lot of work to be done, and I think that there is also a descending hierarchy of, lack of visibility of representation. It's not just gender, but it's also race, and then it's cultural groups, and then, all I can say is there's a lot to be done. I've always tried to be engaged in that. I used to be the women's advocate at the university, which, people don't really know what that is, but in Germany, there's the women's police who makes sure that there's enough representation. But even so, even though we've had a couple of decades of so-called, of the kind of advocation, we still are nowhere close to equal representation. And so there's a lot of work to be done. I mean, I've had my share of experience where my suggestions or, I've worked as a researcher, I've been an editor on a feature film, an experimental film, and I know how to handle a projector. I have some technical know-how, but somehow as a woman you don't get, your opinion as a woman often doesn't get taken seriously if it's coming from a woman, but if a guy says the same thing, then, people take it seriously or something. That kind of thing happens.
It's crazy.
I always, when younger women approach me and ask me for advice, I often tell them the golden rule is, would a guy your age ask themselves the same question? Or would they just do it? And if you realize that they would, then you should too. You shouldn't doubt yourself. You should just go through it, of course, do it. And because women seem to doubt themselves twice as much as men, and always feel like they have to explain themselves more, and they shouldn't have to. They should just have, the same opportunity to do what men do in their age.
No, we couldn't agree more. No, that's very, very well put. Especially asking yourself that question. That's good advice.
Yeah, I mean, I had a friend who was in her late 20s, and she was offered a really good job, and she didn't have so much experience, and so she asked me, should she do it? And I said, of course you should do it. If a guy was in your position, he would immediately take that job and nobody would even question him. Whereas with a woman, it's always like, oh, what did she do to get that job? Or, it's ridiculous the way people respond to a woman's success as well. It's different from the way people respond to a guy's success, because that's not questioned. But if a woman has success, a lot of times it is questioned. How did she get there? Why is she getting the attention? And so on and so forth. And so there's many angles to that question.
Talking about success, you are at the film festival now. You've been at many film festivals before, and you've won awards. How do you measure your success, or what does it mean to you?
What does it mean to me? I don't know. I don't think in terms of success that way. I think it's more, like I said, the way people respond to the work and what dialogue I can have about the work. That is a lot more important. So festivals are super important because that's where the dialogue happens. So in that sense, it's really important for me to be part of festivals and to get that exposure, because if you don't, then you're going to have to look for dialogues in other places. But there have been really great encounters and conversations that I've had at these events, and so that's important. And also, you do want a little bit of recognition for what you've been, for all the work you put into films, and so that's been great. With the work also, what's important to say, or what's important to me, since we talked about Flickr before, there's another aspect that was really important to me. It's the simultaneities, things happening at the same time. And there are always multiple angles to look at one thing. And so I like working with the idea and representation of things happening at the same time, simultaneities. So for example, in this work, there's speed and slowness at the same time through flicker and through the slow motion of the image, but you feel like things are going really fast, but the boy is moving in slow motion. And there's light and dark. There's also a zoom out, and yet you're being drawn in. So it's like this push and pull happening at the same time. And then there's also, the content. There's conscious and unconscious, and there's the liminal and the subliminal, and then there's internal and external. It's all, I want it to feel like it's happening at the same time. So that was very important. This is an important aspect. It's kind of conceptual, but that's what I like to, say about my work.
Right. Now it's almost like, you had two images put together, but then it was many, many, many things at the same time.
Yeah.
And it all layers up to one big emulsion. It was.
And then there's, people. I think the most common interpretation of the work I've been doing is that people say it's about it's about memory or the process of remembering.
Really?
Yeah, that's a very, very common thing to say about my work. I think maybe it's inherent because I work with found footage, because it's archival material, and archival material often has that historical connotation.
So it lends itself to.
Yes.
Yeah.
But maybe in this work, it's also, I think, an important aspect is how things disappear from your consciousness into this, by means of subconscious, into unconscious, into forgetting.
Right.
So processes of forgetting or suppressing memories, in that there's a whole level of imagery that is there, but almost like subliminal. You can almost not see it, and you can almost not recognize it, but it's there. And I like what happens then, and how some people see it and other people don't. And
Right.
that's also an important aspect that I like to play with.
Right. Now it's interesting because there's artists that we like who are always or who were searching for the light in between the takes in the dark spaces, basically, and they were trying to focus on that. And with your work, it's almost like it's always there, but it's not. So it's that, like you said, simultaneous. Like, it's a very interesting concept.
The main found footage is from the 70s. It's from an environmental film, and we have this boy that goes into the forest and sees what is happening to the forest at the hand of man, basically an environmental film. But I matted the boy, and we don't see what the original footage is, but he was originally in a forest, and now I overlaid this footage with new footage. So
it's a different forest now.
It's a different forest, yeah, but similar questions, and
Right.
so. Then what happens then? There is a little bit of that in there as well.
Do you like talking about the work like that? If people ask you, so what is it about?
Well, it's about whatever you want to see in it.
Of course, but if you have certain answers to,
I like to present these answers just to offer them.
Interesting.
Just to let you know that there are things I was thinking about, and if that communicates, it's great. But if I have the opportunity to talk about it, then yes, I like to talk about it. I like to talk about what I was trying to do.
Right.
Of course.
I think that's great, but it's not very common. I guess you know that because a lot of people directors are being asked questions and they say, well, I'm not going to talk about, it's whatever you want it to be,
I think that maybe...
Because they want to keep the mystery alive, or
Yeah.
maybe there wasn't even an intention,
Okay.
but people interpret stuff into it,
Okay.
and then all of a sudden, it's interesting,
I think different people have different approaches, and now that I have the opportunity to talk about it, I would like to offer, my interpretation or my association. And the final thing I wanted to say is that, when I started making this film, there's always a set of questions. There's always the formal questions. There's, the content. And in terms of content, I was interested in working around questions, of the environment. And so then it's not it's not a film about environmentalism, but it is kind of there, and it's subliminal. You can take it or leave it, and that was intentional. And so there is a whole layer of imagery about environmental destruction in there that people don't necessarily see, but it's there, and some people see it. But because of the superimpositions, it's harder to read the material. So it's like, it's almost subliminal, and it's kind of in a way that a lot of people deal with these questions about, the fantastical destruction of the, human habitat or the environment that's occurring, So in a sense that, maybe that's also there. So there are different levels and levels of meaning that you can try and see.
Yeah.
You don't have to, but.
Well, if you have anything else to add, then thank you so much for talking to us.
Let me go through my cards. No, I'm kidding. Done. We're done.
All right, great.